Hello, everyone, and welcome. I see a lot of people coming in, so welcome. So glad to see you all here. And please feel free to use the chat as I see so many people already are. Introduce yourselves, share where you're joining us from. Would love to see that as well as we go ahead and get started with today's powerful conversation, important conversation. My name is Kylie Carr, and I am the CEO and founder of the Asbury Group. And the Asbury Group is a transformational leadership development firm focused on whole person, human centered leadership development. Our specialty is developing conscious leaders so that they can create conscious cultures so that people at work can thrive and people in general can thrive both at work and beyond. Today, we are kicking off a conscious leadership series that we're really excited about. And in our conscious leadership series, we will be featuring some of our practitioners here at the Asbury Group and on our Asbury Group team that we call the tag team affectionately. And we're going to be having some conscious conversations about topics that can truly help people lead well. And that first starts with being well, which is why we wanted to start with the topic that we have today. So before we get started, I want to encourage you again, if you're just joining us, to engage in the chat. Put in your questions, your comments. Let us know that you are engaged and you're present as we have this really great conversation. I know that you can see us and we can't see you. So the more that you can share in the chat, the more we know that you are there. So for this next hour, I encourage you to, or really 53 minutes, I encourage you to be present, to give yourself permission to be here, and to really set an intention for what you are hoping to get out of today's conversation. What do you need to hear? We are going to be having some time for questions, but feel free to put them in the chat as they are coming to you. We will have a point in time when we ask questions or we take questions from all of you. And then we also have something special that we'll share at the very end as well. So you don't want to log off too soon. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So today's conscious conversation is with Dr. Kanika Sims, and I am so excited for you to get to know Dr. Kanika. We are going to have a conversation. This is not a presentation. You will not see a bunch of slides. Instead, we're going to have a conversation about this very important topic about optimizing our health in order to be better leaders. Dr. Kanika Sims is a leadership coach and board certified physician who helps high achieving leaders align well-being with professional success. She has over 20 years of experience in women's health, workplace wellness, and leadership development, and she combines a science-backed strategies with a deeply personal approach to coaching. As one of our amazing coaches here at the Asbury Group, Dr. Kanika empowers leaders to cultivate resilience, unlock their full potential, and thrive in high-stake environments, which I know many of you, if not all of you, are very familiar with. And honestly, I can't wait to dig into this conversation. So without further ado, welcome Dr. Kanika Sims.
Hi, Kylie. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to dig into this. And I love the fact that there's so many people who are clearly vested in this topic. And I'm excited to see where we go with this.
Yes, and I'm curious for those of you who are here with us live, if you can put in the chat, what are you most looking forward to hearing about today? Would love to hear that. So let's get started. Let's start with the big picture. why are we even here today?
Well, the reason we're here is because our leaders matter. We matter. And I think sometimes in the pursuit of success, we sometimes neglect our health. And I believe that you have your divine gifts, your talents that you're supposed to share with the world. And your body is also a divine gift. It's the vessel that allows you to do the work that you were meant to do in this world. And so we don't need to neglect our health in pursuit of our purpose. And in fact, the reason I'm so excited about this is that it's not an either or. It's a we by the time we finish this conversation, people will understand that investing in your health is actually investing in your leadership. It will make you a more effective leader. It will make you a person who is better able to share your talents and gift. So there's going to be the touchy feely, but there's also going to be the science because I know some people need the science in order to really say, okay, this is what we need to do. So, what I really hope is that people will walk away with this understanding when you invest in your health, you're elevating your leadership.
I love that. I love that. And I'm really looking forward to exploring how those two things are connected. I think it's also important for us to discuss how we even got here. Because for many of you who may be listening in today, you may have expected for us to meet last week. And we were scheduled to meet last week. And that didn't happen. And we made a very difficult, an easy but difficult call to change or reschedule this conversation to this week. How about Dr. Kanika? Can you share what what led us to this date?
So, last week I had the flu, and I I have been brought up in a system, and when I say system, healthcare is a brutal system. It's very high stakes, and we have a certain work ethic. And part of that work ethic is you show up no matter how you feel, no matter what's happening, you show up. And that is what I'm grounded in. Not any longer, but it's still there. It's still a huge part of who I am. And so last week when I was feeling unwell, the fevers, the chills had stopped, and I was like, the chills are gone. I think I can do this, Kylie. I actually said full transparency, as the person talking to you about optimizing your health. I actually said, I think I can do it. And would I have been able to push through? Absolutely. However, would it be the experience? Would I be able to offer of myself what you're going to get today? Absolutely not. And so, the beauty of Kylie being the leader that she was able to reset and recenter and say, we are going to prioritize your health. We're going to practice what we preach, right? And so I just think it's so powerful because in the moment, frequently it seems like there is this thing that has to happen and you're just going to push through. And I think culturally, we have been conditioned to always push through and to put ourselves second. And I hope by the end of this conversation, you will I hope by the end of the conversation that something will have shifted for you because it's practice. What I'm going to also be suggesting to you is practice. We are practicing every single day, and you're not going to get it right every single day, but being conscious of it and then making those decisions. And so, with you and I, Kylie, making that decision last week that we are not going to have this conversation about health while I have the flu was a reminder to me that it is okay to take care of myself and prioritize my health. And in the end, the results will be even better.
And I'm curious how many times those of you who are listening to this have experienced the same thing. I'm not feeling well, but I need to push through. And here we are talking about this subject, and we were faced with the same thing. And this is how I knew there was purpose behind this. That I knew that by us saying, let's reschedule, there is somebody on this call who will need to hear that, who will need to hear that story as a reminder that here amazing board certified experienced physician who is teaching about this still has to pause and say, okay, do I really want to push through? And that's the power of culture, the cultural conditioning so many of us have experienced. And are we better for it? I think we're all better for it, right? Yeah. So, Dr. Kanika, I gave a very high level overview of you and your background. Can you share more about your work and what has led you to the work that you do?
So, what's led me here is so, as you said, Kylie, I've been practicing medicine for 20 years. And the thing about medicine is I spent 12 years learning about everything that could go wrong with the human body. And I also practice as a hospitalist, which means I work in the hospital. So, when you are the sickest of the sick and you get admitted to the hospital, those are the patients who I take care of. And so what's happened in that environment is that I've also been traumatized. I've been surrounded by suffering. And being surrounded by suffering and really internalizing the pain that patients and their families go through, it really sent me on a quest to look for there has to be something more than this. And what I found is the body has amazing healing properties. And we don't learn a lot about health in medicine. Like I said, there's a focus on disease and how do we treat disease. And what's been really amazing for me is that recognition like, wait a minute, our bodies, yes, we do certain things to our bodies that make us go from a state of health to dis-ease, but our bodies want to go back. Our bodies want to have health. And what's been really, really amazing for me is as I've discovered, wait, we're not talking about the things that we inadvertently do to put our bodies in a state of disease, but also what are the things that we can do to put ourselves back into a state of health? And one of the other things I realized, medicine is super complex and it's so amazing when you learn about the human body. But the majority of the things that lead to our demise are chronic illnesses. Eight out of the top 10 things that kill us, eight of them are chronic illnesses that are lifestyle related. And so I want that to sink in. The things that are killing us are lifestyle related. And so here's the beauty of this though. If it is lifestyle related, it means that there is something that we can do differently if we know about it. And so it's just been for me like this, like, wait a minute. I need to tell everybody about this because we can change the trajectory of our lives. And where do we spend the most of our time? We spend the most of our time in the workplace, whether you're working from home or whether you're working in the office, you spend the most of your time working. And so if we can talk to people in the workplace, the the impact, the impact is huge.
100%. I love the recognition that our bodies want to be healthy. They want to be healthy. And, with regards to being at work and starting in the workplace, we spend an average of 90,000 hours of our lives at work. And that's why, the work that we do at the Asbury Group is so focused on whole person, because it's not only about what happens when we are in, on our Zoom or Teams calls or in the building. It's about how we show up and the connection there. So, speaking of the connection, let's talk about what you believe is the biggest factor in today's workplace that impacts leaders' health, and why you think that's the case.
So it's not only what I think, there have been tons and tons and tons of research and data asking people in the workforce, what is the number one thing that is negatively impacting you? And it's stress. And so it's really interesting as I went into this journey of healing and how we can heal our bodies. I instinctively did the thing that we do, which is, oh, if we eat more nutritious meals, if we move our bodies more, if we get more sleep. And then because I have a public health background, it always teaches you go to the root cause. What is the underlying root cause that's driving so many of our decisions? Because everybody on this call is very intelligent. So everybody on this call has heard of like, you should do this and you should do that. What is the thing that doesn't allow us to do what's in our body's best interest? And so the number one thing is stress. Stress is the thing that drives us, harms us, and makes it really difficult for us to show up as our best selves.
Whew. And is all stress bad stress?
Oh, no, no, no. And I'm glad you asked that question. So let's be clear. Because you hear stress and we have like this blanket like term for stress. There's two types of stress. Well, actually, I'll say three. So we say eustress and distress. So eustress is the stress that stress is good. Let's just be clear. Stress can be good. Stress is what allows you to save yourself when you're in danger, right? Like it is there for a purpose. Stress is one of those things where any performer, any athlete, any, even in the spaces that we're in, the right amount of stress can motivate you. It can motivate you. It gives you clarity. It gives you focus. So stress is not a good thing or a bad thing. Where stress so then distress. So distress is the thing that we talk about where it is not a motivating factor for you. You are afraid. Your blood pressure's up, your heart rate's increasing. You are feeling very uncomfortable with what is happening and you do not feel safe and you do not feel like you have the ability to meet the thing that's coming for you, right? And so there are lots of changes that happen in your body when you're experiencing that type of stress. What makes stress this thing that has me sitting here talking to you is the chronic stress. It's the chronic stressors that we have where the way the stress response is supposed to work, there's a stressor and you respond. You responded, we're done, you survived. Let's go back into a state of relaxation. But for many of us, we never go back into a state of relaxation. We're always wired. We're always looking for the next thing. And that is what we call chronic stress. And that chronic stress is what leads to inflammation. It's what leads to all of the chronic diseases that, you hear about when we talk about heart disease, strokes. Even people don't realize this, but even cancer, Alzheimer's, memory issues, our anxiety, our depression, all of this comes from this chronic stress because our system, and it's a sympathetic nervous system, is constantly just going and going and going. And like any system that's constantly going and going and going, eventually it's going to break down. And so, to be clear, there's good stress, and then there's stress that has harmful impacts on you. And what really makes it harmful and when is when it's that chronic, you just don't get any relief because your body's not in balance.
Oh, you're reminding me of something that I experienced when I was early in my career, my first job out of college, and I was working in this manufacturing plant in a small town in South Carolina, and our head of marketing was a very gregarious guy, very charismatic, and also very high strung. And sadly, he had lunch one day and he was having some chest pains. We had a nurse on site. He went to the nurse. Actually, before he had lunch, he went to the nurse and he's like, "Yeah, I feel a little tightness in my chest. I'm just going to give it a minute." He had lunch. Came out of he was walking to his office after lunch and dropped dead from a heart attack at 48 years old. And early, I mean, that soon or early in my career, as people were talking about how stressful his job was, it made me really just have a moment to say, wow, is it worth it? Is it worth it? And I think it's easy for us to get caught up in those cycles of doing harm. And not to say that there weren't other factors, we don't know. And but I think it was a wake up call even that early on in my career. So I'm curious about the impact of stress on the brain and on the body. So can you talk a bit more about that? You mentioned some of the illnesses, but what is happening physiologically that leads to some of these diseases?
So this is my jam, right? This is the part where I get super excited and get nerdy and geek out, and I hope you will be excited with me to hear these things. But even before I answer about like what's happening to your body and brain, I want to make it very clear for the leaders that are listening to us right now. Chronic stress doesn't only lead to these chronic diseases that maybe you'll have to deal with, 10, 20 years from now. And you also we tend to have a thing like that thing's not going to happen to me. It's a really sad story what Kylie shared. We all know of people in leadership positions who have had untimely deaths, but you always think it's not going to happen to you, right? You're in pretty great shape, you do most of the things right. That's not your story. What I want leaders to also understand, especially when you consider that we are in a knowledge economy, we are in a place where there's a lot of uncertainty, which of course leads to a lot of stress. And so a lot of the things that we're doing to push ahead, to make sure that we keep our jobs, to make sure that we meet our projections, a lot of those things require that we be able to use our brains. And so let's not talk about the long-term effects of stress. Let's talk about the acute short-term effects of chronic stress where your brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to work when you're under chronic stress. And so the things that are going to determine whether you're an amazing leader, whether your organization does well, is your ability to be creative, your ability to problem solve, your ability to be innovative, and also to collaborate with other people, right? When you're constantly stressed and in that sympathetic fight or flight state, you're not seeing opportunities, you're seeing threats. You're also not seeing how I can collaborate, how I can make the most of the circumstances. You're biologically, you're hunkering in when what you need to do from an organizational perspective is to expand. So I want to be very clear. I just think that was an important distinction to make that we're not talking about the catastrophic events that happen. We're not talking about the things that you may need to be concerned about 20 years from now. I want you to know it's impacting your ability to lead effectively now. So, okay, to your question, Kylie. So what is happening? What is happening? And I think this is so important because if you understand what's truly happening in your brain when you're chronically stressed, I think it'll help some of the solutions we give you because we're going to leave you with solutions. I think it'll help it make sense. So one of the first, so there's a part of your brain called the amygdala, and you don't have to remember all these names, but the amygdala is like your fear center. It's the center that determines whether or not this is a thing I need to be afraid of. Because the reality is what you find stressful is very different than what I find stressful, and vice versa. Why is that? And it's because of our amygdala, it's because of that fear center. And we have different things that we're afraid of, which prompts the stress response. So, first, your body has to decide, is this something that I should be afraid of? Your amygdala makes that decision. And then your hippocampus is a part of your brain where learning and memory happens. And here's the thing about the hippocampus when you're chronically stressed, that part of your brain actually shrinks. I want you to hear me. The part of your brain that is responsible for learning and memory under chronic stress, it shrinks. So, how does that impact your ability to learn new skills? How does that impact your ability to remember the things you need to remember? I hear people talking about I'm having memory issues, I can't remember things like I used to, etc. We're all under chronic stress, right? So it's no surprise. So we have the amygdala. Your body has decided this is fear. I'm afraid. It sends a signal to your hypothalamus. The hypothalamus sends it to your pituitary gland. Your pituitary gland sends a signal to your adrenal glands. And then you start secreting cortisol and epinephrine. And it's pretty immediate. It's impressive. And that cortisol and the cortisol and the epinephrine is what like revs you up, right? It gets you ready for whatever is coming. You're ready. Your blood and what's happening in your body, your blood pressure's going up, your heart rate's going up, your breathing is increasing because you got to get more oxygen in there to feed the tissues and and a host of other things were happening, right? But the sympathetic nervous system is called the fight, flight, or freeze for a reason. If you are in danger, you need to fight, you need to run away, or you freeze and play dead. That is what you're doing. And so, what also happens, which I think is really, really necessary for our leaders to understand, your prefrontal cortex. So we know about the prefrontal cortex. That's what allows you to do all of your thinking, right? All of your strategic thinking, all of those things. And we talk about how teenagers, like, it's not fully developed until, they're 25. And so we know what their decision making capacity is, right? Now, I want you to imagine you are a leader, you are under chronic stress. It has shut down your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is what allows you to be strategic. And you're supposed to be solving problems, and your ability to think has been greatly impacted because of the chronic stress. So I can't say this enough. For me, my brain is my moneymaker, right? This is what I do. My brain is what has allowed me to do what I do. If my brain stops working, and it terrifies me. And when I recognize that, whoa, chronic stress is making me less smart. Oh, that's a problem. It's a problem for me. And I think it's a problem for you if you're in a leadership role and you're leading teams.
It's a problem for all of us if you are in the hospital with patients and your brain is not working. Dr. Kanika Sims, we need your brain working. Yes. So, how often would you say that our bodies or brains are in this stressful state?
So unfortunately, a lot of us, we're there a lot. And this is why we call it chronic, right? Because the reality, so here's something else that a lot of people don't understand. Unfortunately, as smart as our brains are, and so I don't understand why this is the case, but your body can't distinguish between what's real and what's not real. So if you were sitting there and you're sitting at your desk, which in theory, you're actually safe, right? You're at your desk, you're in your office, there's no threat. But we are catastrophizing. We're thinking about all the things that might happen. We're thinking about the email that we got. We're thinking about what happens if this new policy goes into place. We spend so much time in our head going over and over and over worst case scenarios that your body can't tell the difference. And so your sympathetic nervous system, your stress response is always on a 10 because it's trying to protect you. But there's actually nothing that you need protecting from because it's all in your head. And so that is why we stay in that chronic stress state because we spend so much time in our head and not enough time centered and grounded in our bodies, like in the now, in the moment.
Yes. Wow. That is so illuminating. I recall many coaching sessions with people, with leaders who are in very high stress environments where they pride themselves in being able to catastrophize, into thinking about the worst case scenarios, because to them, for many people, it makes them, they think it's making them make better decision. But in fact, what you're saying is it's almost impossible to make a good decision if you're coming from that part of the brain.
Right. Because once again, and this is where understanding the biology is so important. You're in that stress state, your sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive, and it is shutting down your prefrontal cortex. So you're not making the great decisions that you think you're making, right? And so
Yeah.
it's interesting because it's so counter to the things that we to the culture. And but it's so much of what we do in society is counter to like our biology and the things that we actually know will help you perform at your peak performance.
Yes. Well, we've talked a lot about what is happening to our bodies and brains when we're under stress, the bad stress. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, okay, so we're talking a lot about stress, but what can I do about it? What can we do to counteract what is what has been honestly normalized in our work cultures, especially at a leadership level.
So there are quite a few things you can do. I think the three things I would say would be most important, and I'm sure this won't be news to many of you, but one is reframing stress. Um, Not reframing stress, reframing what is happening, right? Because remember, I said it's all about your perception. It's your amygdala. Your amygdala has told you, well, your life events, your circumstances, who you are, right, informs what you decide should elicit a fear response. And so if we learn how to reframe, we use some people where some people see threats, others see opportunities. What is the difference between a person who sees threats versus a person who sees opportunities? Well, one thing I can tell you is very different in how it lands in your body. It's very different in how it impacts your physiology. And when you see an opportunity, it opens up possibility. When you see a threat, that's that fear response. You're scared, you're small, you're trying not to get hurt. And so if we can reframe, and I'm going to give a this is a silly example, but it just tells you how simple this is in reality. So for me, I'm not the best swimmer. I am actually quite uncomfortable around water, which is why I've made sure my children are excellent, excellent swimmers. Every summer, my children want to go to the beach. So we go to a place with an ocean that makes me feel very uncomfortable. I will tell you the entire time I am there, I am on 10. My stress response is heightened. I'm hyper vigilant. I'm looking for danger everywhere. And it's so not fun for my husband or my kids because they're in life jackets, the whole thing, right? But that's just my amygdala. My amygdala has said this ocean is not safe, and my body's responding accordingly. However, there are people who love the ocean. They go look for the biggest waves, and there is no fear response that's elicited when they see these huge waves. They're not, and so, but it's the same ocean, right? It's the same ocean, but my perception of it is a threat, and I respond accordingly. A surfer's perception is that this is an opportunity, and they're ready to get on some waves. So I share that example to say reframing is something that you can do. So number one, reframing. The other thing is being mindful. So being in the present moment is so powerful. So learning how to master techniques where you can be in the moment. So you're not catastrophizing, you're not thinking about what you're going to do. You are in the moment, and you trust and believe in your ability to handle whatever comes in the moment. That would go so far. That would go a long way into minimizing the stress response because you're not sitting at your comfortable desk in your air conditioned office having your body go through all these shenanigans because you're in the moment. And in the moment, you're safe. In the moment, it's all good. And then I'll say the final one is just trusting yourself, right? And if you trust yourself, if you believe that you were resourceful, you were intelligent, that you were able to rise to whatever the occasion is, then you actually can stay in the moment because you don't need to think about what ifs. Because when that what if comes, you'll be ready to meet it. So, reframing, being mindful, staying in the present moment, and trusting yourself, trusting. And for me, there's a core belief that has really helped me with my stress. It's just trusting that the universe has got my back. Anything that is for me will be for me. And anything that happens, I may not always understand what's happening. It may not always be the thing that I want to happen. But if I truly believe that everything works to my good, it really helps me to trust and to be in the present moment and to not be stressed about things that are beyond my control. So those would be like the three foundational things that I would say if we can lean into those principles, it would really help with decreasing our stress.
So powerful, so powerful. One thing that I've heard you talk about that I love the idea of is the relaxation response. So, can you share about what that is and why it can be such a powerful tool for us?
Okay. So this is we spent the first half talking about the things that the body does, and it's just like that doesn't have good outcomes for us. But one of the things I also reference is that our bodies have the power to heal. And so we actually do have all of the tools to be able to heal ourselves and to not be stressed. So I just gave you reframe, stay in the present moment, trust yourself. But if you're in the middle of a stressful event and you are not practiced, you're having trouble reframing anything, right? Because your prefrontal cortex is shut down. You're having trouble staying in the moment because you're not used to being in the moment and trusting yourself. You don't trust these people, you don't trust the universe, and you might not trust yourself, right? So, what can I give you from a physiological standpoint, right? What has your body given you that allows you to shut off the stress response and go into the relaxation response? And so the relaxation, and because the body is amazing, because all these systems are in place, the beauty about the relaxation response is it's the parasympathetic nervous system. And so the responsibility of the parasympathetic nervous system is frequently called rest, recover, repair, right? Or rest and digest. That is the system that does all the other things that we associate with living, all the really fun stuff, right? When you're not trying to survive. That's your parasympathetic nervous system. And one of the most important parts of your parasympathetic nervous system is the vagus nerve. And so the vagus nerve actually, it starts in your brain, it comes down, and it connects your heart, your lungs, your digestion, your reproductive organs, all of those things. And so what happens when you elicit the relaxation response? Your breathing slows down, your heart rate goes down, your digestion improves. It actually boosts your immune system. And on a cellular level, you actually can see where people who regularly elicit the relaxation response are able, you see like improvements in their health, but you also see changes on the cellular level. So it's so powerful because as you're learning these other techniques that I suggested for you, the one thing that you always have available to you, because how do we stimulate the vagus nerve? There are quite a few ways, but one of the easiest, most available, most profound ways that you can do it is breathing. Taking a deep, it's diaphragmatic breathing, big word. Take a big breath, right? So take a nice deep breath. And you let it go. And so you would do that more than once. But what's really amazing about this process is that it stimulates the vagus nerve. It sends a signal to your brain that says it is okay for us to relax. In fact, we are going to relax. And you can turn this on. And that's what I love about it. I think it's pretty amazing. There's so many. Kylie, can I share like other ways that we can elicit? Okay.
Yes, please do.
So other
Don't give
ways.
all the good goodies away, but give a few.
All right. So other ways that are accessible to you, and I just found this amazing. So it's the breathing, right? We all know about meditation and mindfulness. Like it actually is working to elicit the vagus nerve for that reflex. But then other things you don't think about, knitting. So it's just that constant repetition of a thing and you're getting out of your head, right? There's a theme here, getting out of your head. Smiling, laughter. Those are all things that boost your relaxation response. They actually boost your immune system. And, I even discovering like chanting. So I don't know about y'all, but I've dabbled in like Tai Chi and like those, other modalities. And I never really understood them. All I knew is that they made me feel better. And no offense to anybody, but I am a scientist. I'm very analytical. And so there were things I was like, this is weird. You want me to do what? You want me to tap my dungeon, my energy center? And, it was just to me some weird stuff. But I did that weird stuff because I will tell you, oh my God, I was so relaxed and I felt so much better. What I love is that this weird stuff, and it's not weird. I want to be really clear. It is ancient wisdom. that people knew a long time ago, and we are just catching up. So let's just be clear. There's nothing weird about it. But what's really been, oh, we're allowed to be weird. Thank you. But what's really, it's just one of those things for those people though who are like me and very analytical and not always open to these things that don't seem to make sense. It's all wired in science. It's all wired in science. And all these practices are stimulating your vagus nerve, which is stimulating which is a part of your parasympathetic nervous system, and it's bringing you down. It's calming you down. It's relaxing you, and it's allowing you to not only, because I want you to think about what's happening now. So now your hippocampus isn't under chronic stress and the part of your brain where you're learning and memory. And so now you're not forgetting stuff. You're able to actually learn and remember things. Your prefrontal cortex is not inhibited and you're actually able to think. I imagine that you can be relaxed and you can be powerful. You can be relaxed and you can outthink everybody in the room because you're not wired in stress. Imagine. So yes, so the relaxation response is powerful. I I could do a whole talk on the relaxation response. So in the interest of time, but yeah, so that is available to you though. And Kelly, I do want to say one last thing because I didn't say another thing that elicits your relaxation response, which was like pretty mind-blowing to me, is prayer. So if you're in a religious space, prayer without ceasing. And so there are those of you who don't need convincing that prayer is powerful. But the scientist in me was like, oh, this is it's stimulating the vagus nerve, it's eliciting the relaxation response, and then it's putting your body in a place where it can heal itself. That is powerful.
Wow. So powerful. And one thing, I do have another question or two and a comment. But before we do that, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat as we will try to get to as many as possible. And what you were just saying about the relaxation response was reminding me of something that I experienced just this week. I had all day meetings on Monday and half the day on Tuesday. And I was up really early on Tuesday morning. And by the time I got home, I was exhausted. And I still had an event to go to that night. So, what I have a go to 15-minute sound bowl meditation that is my saving grace I've learned. Similarly, when I first time I heard about sound bowls, I was thinking, what are sound bowls? What is that going to do? But when I tried it, I realized, oh, I feel more energized. So I put my earbuds in, I laid down on my bed and listened to these sound bowls for 15 minutes. And when I tell you, I was so energized afterwards, it was incredible. And what I learned about sound frequency is that there's science behind it to show that frequencies, the lower level frequencies that can also be tracked to emotions, can cause dis-ease in our bodies, and the higher level frequencies as well as higher level emotions, which is why I think the laughter and the smiling and the prayer helps, causes healing. So yes, 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 all that to co-sign. So, one more question before I go to the Q&A, and reminding everyone we do have something special we want to share at the very end. So don't log off too soon. But we have so many leaders on the line today, and we've talked about a lot of things. What is one first step they can take today?
So I would say is choose. The first step to anything is choosing. Deciding, who are you? What type of leader do you want to be? And then once you choose, make one small decision. So whether the decision you make is, before I say something, when I'm feeling a little tight, when I'm feeling my heart rate going up, when I'm feeling whatever your body feels when you're getting stressed, instead of responding the way I typically respond, maybe I'm going to pause, and do the deep breathing exercises, 2 minutes, and then respond. Because I think we're all very I don't think, I know. We're all very successful, very like, we're going to do all the things, right? And you might jump off this call and say, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. I'm actually imploring you to keep it simple. Choose one thing, make it a part of your everyday life, make it a part of your habit. And once you do that, then you can expand. Maybe you're going from 2 minutes deep breathing to expanding to 10-minute meditation every morning. Or maybe for you, it's prayer or knitting or whatever it is, but committing to every day focusing on one thing that is bringing you down and making you relaxed and seeing how that powerfully impacts your ability to do the work that you're doing. And can we add? We can always add. There's always more to this, right? There's levels to this thing. But I recommend that you start with one simple step and and see what it does for you.
I love that. Well, I see some questions coming through, and I also understand that there might be some people who have to leave early. So I do want to make one comment. We're going to give some more details, but we know that this is such a critical component in the state of the world. For those of you in the United States, there's a lot of activity right now, a lot of heightened stress and emotion. And the more we can tap into the tools that will help us to center ourselves, to elicit those relaxation responses, and to be better humans, will be better leaders. And given that that may require some support because we have been conditioned otherwise, we have an additional masterclass that will go into more detail. Dr. Sims will get deeper and give you even more tools and hold your hand along the way with that. So again, I'm going to share more about that in just a bit, but I will put the link in the comments just in case anybody has to leave, and I want to make sure that no one misses out on that. So one question is somebody said, she said, relaxation can make us more powerful. Is that true? I believe it is, right? So, one question we have is, how can leaders balance the work environment to encourage and support the optimal and most productive work experience for their workforce?
So I think the first thing is it starts with you. So the leader sets the tone. So if you are more grounded, if you are kinder to yourself, because the reality is, I think a lot of times we're not really kind to ourselves, right? And so this is not. I won't be prescriptive and give you more of the doing. Who are you being? How are you showing up? And when you show up in a way that honors your humanity and values who you are and values your health and values those things, then you will create an environment that will do the same for your people. But it definitely is not one of those things where you do one, two, three, four, five, you create a work culture that, is conducive to these things. Absolutely not. It's starting with yourself. And then once you do the work and you show up in that way, it's going to inform all of the decisions that you make.
So good. It starts with you. It starts with how we show up, right?
Mhm.
So it looks like this is more of a comment. Love the point about the current present effect of chronic stress in comparison to long-term effects. Can you, there is a question. Can you speak on the idea that today's stress is necessary for a stress-free future, i.e. retirement and comfort?
I like this one. I like this one.
Mhm.
So we have this idea, and I will tell you, I was in college, I was like, work hard now, play hard later. That is what I told myself. So I missed out on a lot in college because I was like, I am committed. Work hard now, play hard later. 20 plus years later, it doesn't stop, right? It doesn't stop. The cycle continues and you work more and you work more and you work more. And so this idea that I'm willing to compromise, because you're really saying that you're going to compromise your health for this nebulous future, right? I'm going to work as hard as I can to stack as much money as I can, and then I'm going to retire and live my best life. but the body doesn't work that way. And so what happens is you are wearing down your body, you're tearing down your body, and that future that you are planning for is a future that I can tell you, given the work that I do, is a future that ends up being in doctor's offices and hospitals. And it ends up being a future where you don't get to do all these things that you thought you would be able to do. And I want to say again, and maybe this question came before I talked about the impact on your brain. You actually will be more effective if you're able to relax, if you're able to be in the present moment, if you're able to trust yourself, because your brain is working better. So you're going to be more strategic. You're going to be more creative. You're going to come up with solutions that are going to make you or your organization a lot of money, right? So it doesn't have to be we are going to work ourselves to the ground and then hope that there's something left when we on the other end. And it's like, no, 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 no. So I really, really want to reinforce the fact that we are able to do the work so much better when our bodies are in balance. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, and I can see from the chat so many people needed to hear that life is too short. I lost several people, particularly from friends from college last year, that reminded me how fragile life is. And we only get one of these, right? So, oh, let's not wait for an easier day to enjoy life. Love that message. I want to share with you all, how we can keep this going. So as I mentioned, life is hard. Life is hard, and the positions that you all are in are critical. The impact you each of you I know are making within your teams, your organizations, your communities, and beyond is critical. So that's why we knew that having an even more in-depth session related to mastering stress for leadership success was important, was necessary. Today we scratched the surface, right? We talked about some of the reasons why. We talked about, the body, the physiology, and some of the tools. So what we want to do is give you even more tools and practices, and more importantly, support to help you to really be more effective in your leadership and in your lives. So in this 2-hour masterclass, and it's more than a masterclass, it's an entire package. It includes more understanding around stress, but more importantly, the tools and support that will help you make those changes necessary to be in a more relaxed state, and understand, and I'm going to share with you today, that it is possible. It is available to you. Even when we see everybody around us operating differently, it is possible. And this masterclass will help you understand and help you implement some of those tools that will allow you to be more effective, to engage more of those executive functioning skills that are in that prefrontal cortex of your brain, and have more mastery over the stress in your life. This package a couple of things. One, it's taking place next month, February 26th, from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern time, or 12 to 2 p.m. Pacific time. You can do the calculations based upon where you're located, but it will include that 2-hour masterclass session with Dr. Kanika Sims. You'll also receive a radical self-care toolkit that includes those practices, including some meditations, sound bowls, resources, a wide variety of resources and tools for you to support your well-being and wellness journeys. And then we also will have a specially curated playlist of meditations that have been thoughtfully curated from our team at the Asbury Group to really deepen your mindfulness practice so that you can get into that relaxation state. So, this package, and today is not I'll say we don't like selling at the Asbury Group. It's an invitation to you. it's an invitation for you to tap into your well-being. And that's why we didn't want to make it cost prohibitive. We wanted it to be something that can be really restorative and supportive for you and your teams. So less than $500 to be a part of this and get all of these tools and practices. So this is the package. I am going to put the link again in the comments. If you're watching this video recording, it will be in the email that is sent to you where you can be with us. So this is important. What we find in every single session that we lead, and I'm going to stop sharing for them for a moment so I can put this in the chat, but every session, every masterclass we lead with our practitioners, we learn from the deep expertise and wisdom from our practitioners. But part of the fun in it is also being able to experience it with other leaders as well, because we always learn from each other. So we see this as an exchange of energy, of insights, and more. So that is the offering to you. I know that we are at time. I can stick around for a couple minutes. Dr. Kanika, can you stick around for a couple of minutes if we have additional questions before we officially close?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to say thank
Wonderful.
you. I see so many people here who I know, and I'm so excited that you're here. I hope that this has been beneficial to everybody.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And if you have questions, put them in the chat. Any questions, any additional questions? Most importantly, we're thankful that you were able to spend this time with us. And Dr. Kanika, I'm incredibly grateful for you to share your wisdom and your expertise with us, especially now. And I know there was a reason why we needed to have this today and not last week. So I see so much great love in the comments. Thank you so much. So I'm not seeing any other questions, but I'm going to give it a little while just in case. See mostly love. Well, with that, everyone, thank you so much for being with us for this conscious conversation. We hope that you'll join us on February 26th for a more in-depth masterclass on this important topic. And most importantly, be well. Be well. Take care, everyone.